I'd like to call the September 16, 2014 meeting of the Senate Finance Committee to order. Lisa, if you could please take the roll call.
Blake. Here. Brown. Here. Eichelberger. Here. Greenleaf. Here. Hutchinson. Here. Smith. Here. Teplitz. Here. Vance. Here. Wozniak. Here. Brubaker.
Here.
Scarnati.
Scarnati is en route, and I have a proxy for him. Senator Scarnati, you're being called into roll call. Senator Scarnati, you're being called into roll call. Yes, thank you. Okay. Okay, a quorum being established. What's before us today is two bills, Senate Bill 7 and Senate Bill 76. The audience, the security has told me we're at and beyond capacity. So I know everybody in the room understands the protocol of this type of committee function. We need to follow a strict protocol. I know there's people here in the audience with a great deal of passion on one or both of these issues, but I'd ask that you contain that passion as much as you possibly can so that we can carry on the business that we need to conduct. First up is Senate Bill 7. It's a Senator Mike Fulmer bill, and Senator Fulmer's here. And Senator Fulmer, if you would not mind taking the stand. Stephanie, please state the bill.
Senate Bill 7 provides for a freestanding act known as the Taxpayer Protection Act, providing for limitations on state government spending growth.
Senator Fulmer, would you like to briefly explain the bill from your perspective?
I'll be real quick. I realize we have a heavy agenda here today. First of all, I want to thank the committee for bringing this bill forward. Basically, what Senate Bill 7 is, it's a very simple bill. The legislation would reasonably limit, and I stress limit, not reduce, the growth of state spending through the lower of the following thresholds. Limit state government spending to the average change in personal income to the 3 preceding calendar years, or limit state government spending to the average inflation rate plus the average percentage change in state population over the 3 preceding years, with exceptions for certain extraordinary circumstances. The Taxpayer Protection Act would also require that 75% of any monies in excess of these limits be returned to the taxpayer, and 25% would be allocated to the rainy day fund to help balance state budgets during trying economic times. According to the Mercatus Center of George Mason University, 28 states have spending controls, revenue controls, or both, either by statute or as part of their respective state constitutions. Pennsylvania is in the minority of the states having no controls.
Thanks, Senator. Is there a motion to move this bill? There's a motion by Senator Eichelberger, second by Senator Scarnati. The floor is now open for questions or debate on the bill. Actually, before that, I have an amendment. Senator Fulmer, are you aware of the amendment?
Yes, I am aware, and I put my stamp of approval to it.
Thank you. And what my amendment does is slightly alter the manner in which potentially future excess funds would be allocated. It would be 25% to the rainy day fund, 25% returned to the taxpayers, and 50% used to pay down unfunded liabilities into our 2 retirement funds. Is there a motion to accept that amendment? There is by Senator Vance and second by Senator Brown. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, seeing none, a vote on the amendment. Any negative votes? Okay, the amendment will be marked as a unanimous approval. Now we'll go to Senate Bill 7 as amended. The floor is open for questions or comments. Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr.
Blake.
Chairman. The intentions of the maker of the bill are laudable, commendable, and I do want to make note because I think the intentions are well-founded. I had an experience in the previous budget debate where I did have an amendment that would have required the Commonwealth, for instance, to make its annual yearly payment to our pension systems. And to his credit, the Republican chairman of Appropriations indicated that perhaps it might not be ill-advised for us to constrain the discretion of future General Assemblies or governors who are tasked and who are elected to deal with ever-changing conditions. So again, I think this is a commendable intention, but I get concerned that in good times we would not be able to be in a position to render benefits back to the taxpayers of the Commonwealth, and in bad times we might be actually constraining what the state can do in order to grow our economy. So I'm unfortunately going to be a dissent on this bill, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairman Blake. Any other additional questions or comments before we take the roll call? Senator Scarnati.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and certainly thank you for scheduling this bill to run, and Senator Fulmer for your vigilance in introducing this so often. You know, I can speak a little bit to the practicality of sitting at the budget table for quite a few years now. And what I can tell you for the last 4 years, we have taken into consideration the concept of this bill in crafting the budget. For the last 4 years, we have taken Tabor as though it was into law and into statute. And, you know, I think it's fair for us as legislators to also keep in mind increasing spending on the state level or federal level or county level or municipal level. There's a direct relationship to incomes and inflation of those that are paying these bills. You know, I still run a small business. I'm in business. And what I can tell you is, you know, I've got to make things balance for myself at the end of the day, like every family does with their checkbook. Is this going to cause indigestion to people in the Capitol? Yeah. But we figured it out for the last 4 years. We've done it. And I think that moving forward, you know, whether we have a greater debate on this, whether there's changes to this as we move forward, but I'm willing to raise the flag and carry the flag. I think this needs to get done, just based upon my experience at the budget table, and clearly my experience as a business person and running a family checkbook. So I applaud moving the bill, and I just hope my colleagues will take consideration to move the bill out of committee and allow this debate to take place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Lisa, please take the roll call.
Blake,
And we're voting on Senate Bill 7 as amended. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Blake, Brown, Eichelberger, Greenleaf, Hutchinson, Smith, Teplitz, Vance, Wozniak, Brubaker,
Aye.
Scarnati.
Lisa, the final count, please.
Excuse me. 7 ayes, 4 noes.
The vote is 7-4. Senator Fulmer's Senate Bill 7 moves from this committee. Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much to the committee. Thank you. Our second and final bill that we'll call up today is Senate Bill 76, and Senator Argle's in the room. If you could come forward, please. Stephanie, if you could explain the bill that we're considering.
Senate Bill 76 proposes to eliminate school property taxes by shifting to other revenue sources.
Is there a motion to move the bill? There's a motion by Senator Scarnati. Is there a second? Senator by Senator Eichelberger to move the bill. Senator Argle, would you like to speak to the bill?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you. I want to thank the members of the committee for all of the time you've spent on Senate Bill 76. I know this is a very complex issue. I am here with Senator Fulmer as 2 of the 25 co-sponsors of this legislation. It's important to note we did not write this legislation. This legislation was written by an authentic grassroots coalition of more than 80 taxpayer groups across the state. 2 years ago, they approached Mike, they approached me. We said we would introduce it at their behalf. At that time, we had 13 co-sponsors. Today, we have 25. Several of you have heard me say that, you know, I can't go to McDonald's or buy a bag of potatoes anywhere in the 6 counties that I represent without someone asking me about the status of this legislation. I think you've heard me say before that certainly there has to be a better way to fund the public schools than how big is your house? When was it last assessed? Did you fix the hole in your roof? When was it last spot reassessed? I believe that the current way that we fund the public schools is just simply outmoded and archaic, and with the help of a lot of people, including members of this committee, including the co-sponsors, including the public, we have worked and worked and worked to refine this bill, and I want to thank you for your consideration, and I would certainly request a yes vote.
Well, thank you, Senator. I have a statement and a question. I understand that it's possible that some of our members here may offer amendment after amendment after amendment to attempt to either add clarity to 76 or to alter the strategy in some way. It's my strong preference as chair of the Senate Finance Committee to see that Senate Bill 76 gets an up or down vote today. I believe Senator Argyle is prime and Senator Fulmer working cooperatively along with those 25 co-sponsors that the senators talked about have invested an enormous amount of time. And I believe the public's well served by an up or down vote. So should there be a series of amendments, then I'll be asking the committee members to consider saying no to those various amendments that could potentially be filed to prevent an up or down vote on 76. And that's one. Number two, and final, Senator Argyle, we all know this, but for some of the people listening across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the title of this is to propose elimination of property school taxes. Can you speak for roughly 1 minute or less, if it's possible, because it's complex, but it does not, it's a $13 or so billion tax shift. And should this bill become law, property taxes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania do not go down to zero automatically. Could you briefly explain that scenario?
For some school districts, it would immediately go to zero because there are school districts in Pennsylvania that do not have any debt. For those school districts that do have debt, they would immediately lose the authority to implement a property tax for everything except paying off the debt. They would not be able to bring on any new property taxes to pay for any new debt. And so as the debts would be eliminated, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, at that point, they too would go to 0% property tax. That was the, I think, long and hard deliberations of those 80 taxpayer groups. They thought that that was the fairest way to come to complete elimination in Pennsylvania for every school district.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to introduce a technical amendment on behalf of the prime sponsor of the bill, which would be Senator Argyle. I would like to introduce that amendment at this time. It's his amendment, and I'm introducing it on his behalf. It's Amendment A09462, and I describe it as a technical amendment. Senator Argyle, would you like to explain the amendment in further detail?
Basically, with the series of studies by the Independent Fiscal Office, as well as this committee, as well as a wide-ranging coalition of different groups, some in favor, some against. When they came to me, I said, look, don't just tell me what you don't like. Tell us how we can improve it. Tell us how we can fix it. Basically, it maintains the structural integrity of the bill, which is to provide for a dollar-for-dollar replacement of the school district property tax in such a way that the property tax, once killed, would never again come back to haunt the people of Pennsylvania.
And confirm for me that this statement's true, that the Senate Finance Committee held a hearing on this amendment, of which we're about ready to vote on back in May.
Certainly correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So the floor is open for a vote on the amendment. After we do that, then we'll fully open the debate for Senate Bill 76 as amended. Is there a motion to move the amendment? Senator Brown moves the technical amendment, and Senator Scarnati seconds. Any opposition votes? A question on the amendment.
You made an announcement that you didn't want any amendments and you would ask for a no vote. Is that true? Regardless.
Thank you. Senator Vance is asking me about my prior statement about amendments. The amendments that I'll be asking for a no vote on are amendments that are not consistent with the up or down vote on Senate Bill 76 as authored by the prime sponsor. This technical amendment is consistent with the prime sponsor's desire to fine-tune his own bill. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any negative votes on the amendment? The amendment will be filed as a unanimous vote. Now, before us is Senate Bill 76 as amended. The floor is open for questions or comments. Senator Blake.
Mr. Chairman, this has been a long and deliberative process, and I have deep and abiding concerns with the underlying bill. And I have followed this closely through our hearings, through the analysis of the IFO, and as you indicated, this is a rather momentous piece of legislation. It involves a $12 to $13 billion tax shift off of commercial and residential property owners onto individual taxpayers in the form of income tax and sales tax. I believe to some extent that the vote is a little premature insofar as we've not yet had the findings of the Funding Formula Commission, this public school formula. The issue of debt, to my friend Senator Argyle, I acknowledge your explanation. I think there are only 6 districts out of the 500 that have no debt, and it concerns me the impact of this legislation insofar as there would still be an obligation on the part of taxpayers to take that debt to zero before they can truly benefit from the impact of this were it to become law. I'm concerned about the impact on small businesses of this legislation. I'm concerned that about 35% of the local tax burden is currently borne by corporations across the state, and if this were to become law, they would no longer share that burden. I'm concerned about the highest sales tax in the nation in our 2 largest cities that would result if this became law, and on some of the legal construct of the bill on NAICS codes, because I think it really speaks to industrial classifications and not to the services. But I would also indicate that the property tax system is broken. And I need to echo what Senator Argyle has said. The system is obsolete, it is inequitable, it is punitive on fixed income seniors, it is punitive on young families trying to start out, and it is, in my opinion, broken. And I fear that we have not had an appropriate civic debate on the complexities of this bill in the confines of this committee, notwithstanding the committee hearings we've had, Mr. Chairman. Some of the tenor of the communications on this bill have been distasteful by some proponents, and I think the chairman has received some of those communications. And I don't think anybody in this chamber should be intimidated to a vote. It's our judgment that's being called here, and it's our judgment that we use on behalf of the people we represent. So I think that for the benefit of a larger debate, to the next step in this process, taking some words from my friend and colleague, the Senator Pro Tem, that perhaps this debate should be widened and continued, that we need to consider advancing the bill forward to the Appropriations Committee. Notwithstanding all of the flaws that I think exist in the bill, I think we have not had a broader debate, Mr. Chairman, and I think that debate is one that the people of Pennsylvania deserve. So I will reserve my right to dissent in appropriations or on the floor should it make it there, because I think there are serious flaws in the bill and corrections that need to happen. But I will agree to advance this vote affirmatively out of this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Blake. Floor is open for other comments or questions. Senator Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trying to keep this very, very brief. I do not feel that the time has come for this bill as written. Sometimes things that seem simple, like a simple solution to a very complex thing, are not that simple. And I think in this case, although there will be many winners, there will be many people who will pay less, who will be assessed more fairly. There will also be many, many people who are losers in this, who are paying much higher taxes. And another group of folks that I would call losers are the unwealthy school districts across Pennsylvania that will be locked in to a much smaller amount of funding in relative terms forever. because of this bill. And it as I said, it's sort of a complex argument because nobody, when they get their property tax bill in the mail, whether that property tax bill is $500 or $5,000, nobody likes that bill. But to look a little bit deeper and see that we have a school funding problem, school distribution funding problem, and to throw this on top of it, I think it compounds the inequities in Pennsylvania. So for many other reasons also, I will be opposing this bill. But I just wanted to go on the record with a few of my thoughts at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Greenleaf.
This bill is very intriguing to me and very tempting in regard to its concepts. And I think that we all agree that the property tax situation is dysfunctional and needs to be addressed. I have some concerns in regard to the legislation, in regard to the facts that we in my area get about 15 cents back on our dollar. Most of the taxes that are paid from the southeast. About 1/3 to 40% of all the taxes, sales tax, income tax, all those taxes, my people are paying for. So this bill may be giving now 85 now, we're going to send 85% of our money up to Harrisburg, and we're not going to get it back. Like, what happens with the hold harmless clause? The hold harmless clause is allowing school funding to go to schools that have lost population, has not had an increase in property taxes in years, has surpluses, while my school districts are just the opposite. What happens under this legislation with that? In regard to the commercial properties, there is a homestead provision, constitutional amendment, that will allow us to do this and reduce property taxes by half. That's an intriguing idea for me. It takes away also, I've been told in my district that the school districts want, and our people in my district want, local control. The possibility of this, sending everything, all our money up to Harrisburg, is, do we get any of that money back, number one, and number two, how much control do we lose? Because we don't want to lose control over our school districts. But where the money is, and where the money's generated, where the money's paid, is where the control is. You know, no question, I for years have supported legislation to freeze taxes for senior citizens. And so it is a major issue. So it's a quandary for me and when I'm dealing with this issue, all those. And so I think we had to be really careful, this bill increases the sales tax and the income tax by $13 billion. That's a tax increase. That's a state tax increase, and most of that money is going to be paid for by my constituents. 1/3 to 40%. My constituents in 5 counties are going to be paying that. So I have concerns. They're the concerns I have. We want to do and we should do something in regard to our property taxes. But on the other hand, the consequences of having a $13 billion tax increase, basically what we're voting for here, is concerning to me as well.
Thank you, Senator. I would, Senator Greenleaf talked about $13 billion tax increase, but I believe that the fiscal impact to the Commonwealth on this is zero, so he's correct, it's a $13 billion increase in receipts of taxation from one area, but an offsetting $13 billion reduction. Is that accurate?
You tell that to my taxpayers then.
I mean, statewide, Senator.
Statewide, they're not paying 40% of the taxes. My constituents are.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Senator Teplitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The substantive points that I was going to make have already been addressed by the 3 previous speakers, and so I won't repeat those. But I did want to address quickly 2 misperceptions that I think have been out there during this debate. I have a lot of town halls. I've discussed this issue extensively at those town halls, and two things kept coming up that I think I need to address. I'm pleased that the bill is coming up for a vote. I think it's important that the sponsors and the proponents of the bill have the opportunity through multiple hearings and through debate today and perhaps later to fight for their bill and see where it goes. There has been a misperception, at least from some of the folks who I've heard from, that those of us who are not committed to voting for the bill, who may even be open-minded about the bill but haven't fully committed their support, are somehow responsible for not bringing it up for a vote. And I just think it's important for the record to resolve that issue, that, you know, those of us in the minority, particularly a freshman member of the minority, we don't have that kind of power, as anyone who understands the legislative process knows. The second misperception, and the more important one that I think is important to address, is that if you are not supportive of this bill, then that must mean that you are supportive of the status quo, or that you believe the property tax issue is not a critical issue. That is not the case. Speaking for myself, and I'm certain for others of us who may be no votes on this bill, like other important public policy issues that we confront here, there are multiple approaches, all with their upsides and downsides. And those of us who do not support this particular approach are not taking that approach, are not taking our vote lightly, and we support other approaches to deal with this issue. I know on both sides of the aisle, and I've got my own proposals, others do too, of both parties, to address this issue. And I hope that we have the opportunity to pursue those proposals as robustly as this proposal has been put forward. Depending on what happens with the vote today and whether this bill moves forward, I still hope we have the opportunity to present alternatives, other ways, in order to get at, I think, the heart of the substantive concern which Senator Hutchinson raised and which I echo, which is the concern for some of us that we're merely trading one set of winners and losers for another. But those next steps, I suppose, will remain to be seen depending on today's vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments before the, yes, Senator Scarnati.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On my way down here, I was asked by a member how I was voting on this, and I didn't have to think long. I'm voting for moving the bill forward. And what I can say is there's a lot of, as you can see, those in the audience here, there's a lot of deliberate thought process that takes place by the members and how they arrive at their decision of where they're at. Clearly, I want to thank Senator Argel, who has really pushed this rock up the hill in this building for some time, and thank the chairman for scheduling the bill to move. But, you know, there's no other process available to the legislature to address this issue unless we move a bill. And I'm not saying that this is the end product. I don't know if it's the end product. I don't know if the end product will be satisfactory to those in the room or those that are voting for it. But what I can say is this is the democratic process that we put in place to address issues. You know, I have paid many, many tens of thousands in property tax as a you know, real estate investor for many, many years. What I can say is, you know, poll after poll, town hall meeting after town hall meeting, sitting around with coffee with my parents, property taxes are an issue. I think that we've got to figure out a way. We have to figure something out to find some sanity to this process. And so the only way to begin that is to move a bill. So I will be voting in favor of it, and I would hope that members here take in consideration that a vote now doesn't bind you to a vote later, but it certainly binds us to a conversation that needs to be had. So thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be supporting this bill, and I'll tell you what, I've been in office a long time, and every campaign, people raise that flag and say, I'm going to do something about property taxes, I'm going to do something about that, and we talk up here, and then, you know what, nothing happens. And the reason that we're here today is because we haven't done our job up here to begin with. If we would have funded the educational system the way we were supposed to from the state, the pressure on property taxes wouldn't be there. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to be saying, and try to kill this with 1,000 stabs. The lawyers will say, don't tax me. The chiropractors will say, don't tax me. The food purveyors will say, don't tax me. The clothing people say, don't tax me. But no matter what you do, you've got to try to find a funding mechanism for the state. And I'll tell you what, when they came to Johnstown and they had that public meeting and they sat down and explained it. Now, of course, there's some issues out there, but just about every single question I had in my mind, they already worked it out and articulated those circumstances. A lot of work was done on this bill. Is it the final package? Who knows? But I'll tell you what we're doing now isn't working. Pennsylvania's not going to fall apart if this doesn't work either. We've been here a long time. And if we were doing something to reverse, because this concept wasn't working and we were trying to shift to a property tax because this concept doesn't work, it would take just as long because people, propensity to change is very difficult. I'm taking the blinders off. This is sort of like, okay, is that a vase I'm looking at? Or is that two faces looking at each other? Nobody's incorrect, but it's a different way of looking things. And I'm one for one, it's like, let's give it a shot. Let's continue this process forward. And I'll tell you what, there's other issues, and Senator Argonne knows exactly what I'm talking to, and so does Senator Fulmer. It's about looking at the artificial boundaries we created back in 1968 with our school districts. It's about the administrative costs of our school districts. We should always look to continue to get more efficiencies out there. This is a different funding method for education, but we've got to look at the fact that we are living in school districts that were created in 1968 in a demographics as 2014. Some things have to give, and I sure hope that some of my concepts will be able to find their way through the Education Committee that Senator Fulmer sits on. So with that, I thank you very much.
That was a pretty interesting way to end your conversation by shifting to another favorite piece of legislation you would like to move from the chair sitting before you. Any other questions or comments before the members of the Senate Finance Committee? I see none. So I'd like to conclude with my own very, very brief comments. We have had a version of this in committee since 2011. Stephanie, she's confirming that that's accurate. At that time, it was not Senate Bill 76, it was Senate Bill 1400. If we begin, this is a very, very crude estimate by myself, but if we would begin to collect the hours invested in listening to constituents across Pennsylvania on this issue, it would be well in excess of hundreds of thousands of hours. This committee dealt with this informally, many times in many different versions. So as I said at the onset, it's my decision, my conclusion, after speaking with many members that want this to fail and they want it to pass, it's time that this bill, Senate Bill 76, gets an up or down vote in committee, and that's what we're lining up to do right now. Hearing and no last comments? Okay, I'd like to call up Senate Bill 76 as amended and ask Lisa to take the roll call.
Blake. Aye. Brown. Aye. Eichelberger. Aye. Greenleaf. No. Hutchinson.
No.
Smith. No. Teplitz. Vance. No. Wozniak. Yes. Brubaker.
Aye.
Scarnati.
Lisa, could you give me the final vote count, please?
I have 6 ayes and 5 nays.
Senate Bill 76 moves out of committee. As amended, this committee serves at the recess of the chair.